The Return is about two brothers whose estranged father returns and takes them on a trip, which does not equate to familial bliss. So we're doing a new thing here. It's a series where we're going to look at like all of the directors or not all of the cinematographers, but like a cinematographer, some of their movies, or maybe movies from a certain country or place.
It's like a series.
It's a series and it's a study, and maybe at the end of it we'll come out with a video essay or something about it.
Who knows? A huge conclusion. We will come to deeper understanding.
Yes.
So our inaugural study is going to be about
Andrey Zvyagintsev.
We saw Loveless as part of last year's foreign language film nominations.
Yeah.
Which is his latest film, and we wanted to go back and watch all his films because we have not seen anything except Loveless, and he has been nominated for an Oscar before.
For Leviathan.
Yes.
Yes. Also, our apologies on the pronunciation of his name.
We'll do our best.
We will do our best. That's what we got. Also, we're going to start the review without doing spoilers for a while, and then when we start talking about spoilers, we will let you know, so don't fear until we tell you to.
So The Return is his first film.
Yeah.
He started out as an actor. He is from...
Here it is.
Siberia is a huge section of Russia.
Right. People say Siberia, and I feel like it's when somebody says Africa. It's
yeah.
Like there's more to it than
I think people picture that it's going to be northeast because it's very, very cold. And it is very, very cold, but it's actually a huge section that goes pretty far south.
Yeah.
Back when Russia was the USSR, it was more of a smaller... It was still a big space, but there was more of the entire country to begin with.
Yeah.
But it's almost like half of Russia.
Yeah.
And the city he's from is actually the third largest city in Russia. And it's actually further south.
Right.
It's very close to...
country.
Yeah, it's like some of the parts that used to be parts of the USSR.
Right.
It's almost as far south in Russia as you can get.
Okay.
And The Return, as I said, his first film, it was actually filmed up by the Lake of Finland. It has a name as well. I researched this carefully. And it is actually up right by Finland.
Okay.
And it's a very large lake. There is no official budget, but this is a low-budget film, and you can kind of tell, but not in a bad way.
No, you just can tell that they did not spend money on anything.
Yeah, so let's talk about the film itself. That's just a little bit of background I have on it.
It opens on a scene that just captures my heart. So, I forget what the first shot is, but they're on I forget what they call those things, but when they're rocks that go out into the ocean or the lake or sea or whatever. And there's a stand there that I don't know what it is even, but it's a little tower thingy, and it's old and made of wood and stuff. And there's a bunch of boys jumping off of it into the ocean / lake / whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're one of the boys, who we learn is named Ivan.
Mm-hmm. Ivan.
Ну и черт с тобой!
He can't do it. He just sits there, and they're all making fun of him for it, and then they leave, and he just sits there. And he is terrified of heights. And boy, oh boy, do I understand that.
It's an interesting setup for the rest of the movie, and I feel like I do want to say, since we're doing spoiler-free right now, I loved this movie. I thought it was great.
It was great.
And
I'm so impressed watching this as Andrey Zvyagintsev first movie to Loveless, and I'm like, these are both excellent movies.
It's terrible because in a way it'd be fun if this were the entirety of his career, because you could really make something of those bookends. He's only in his 50s, and hopefully he will make many more films, because so far the two of, I think he's got 6 or 7, are great.
Yes.
It's very literary to me, the way this opens, because it's so specific a scene, and it sets up so much. Because then his mom shows up, and it's this very maternal moment.
Yes.
Я должен прыгнуть, я не могу спуститься по лестнице. Почему?
She is very loving, and you don't have to do this, and so on, which is going to be in direct contrast to basically the rest of the film, which is about men, masculinity, conflict between them.
And also this sort of like estranged nature of having one really like close parent and one really estranged parent. The difference in sort of how Ivan and then the other brother Andrey feels about that.
Yes.
And like their own take on it.
And the setup is Ivan, who's the slightly younger one, fails.
Right.
And Andrei's the one that succeeds.
Right.
But as the movie goes on, the way they interact and the way they interact with the father who shows up
Yeah.
is very different.
Well, because, okay, so right after, so one more thing about this scene and then let's move on. The shots start out being held for a really long time. This is apparently his style because it's like that in Loveless too. And
I love long shots. I am not a big fan of quick cutting. There's reasons to do it, but I love a good long shot. It's also a low budget thing.
It's also a low budget thing, but it's also what makes films literary to me. That adds, when you don't move as much from one thing to another, it feels like you're spending more time on it, which feels more literary.
Yeah.
Then, as we move on from this scene to the next one, I didn't actually realize they were brothers yet, but Ivan goes to hang out with the friends again, and Andrey has apparently told them that he chickened out, and they start making fun of him.
Well, they all saw him chicken out.
Yeah, they didn't, he could have potentially done it after they left, whatever. But so then they start fighting each other, the brothers do, and then they immediately run to mom.
Yeah.
And that's also a moment of like, yes, maternal, run to the mother. And it's also really like, it really instantly gets me interested in the characters. Like, even if you don't have a fear of heights, I feel like that scene works. Even if you don't have siblings, I feel like this scene works. It creates characters that you instantly care about.
Well, and there's conflicts, but the conflicts are all very domestic.
Yeah.
But with these bigger questions attached. Are you a coward? Are you a man?
Yes.
Do you run home to mom kind of stuff?
Yeah.
But the brothers seem to get along.
Yeah.
I love the settings. I felt the same way about Loveless. In this case, we're more in the country.
Yeah.
And they appear to live in an abandoned warehouse. I don't think that's what it actually is, but everything has a feel of abandonment to it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because something I forgot to mention in the background of this is, at this point in Zvyagintsev career, Russia still supports him.
Right.
From what I read, and there's the issue with studying foreign language movies is that a lot of the writing in it is probably in a foreign language. I can't speak Russian, I don't read Russian, I don't know anything, so there's not a ton of information. But from what I could find, he had the support of Russia basically through Leviathan. And then after that, Loveless was financed by Europe.
Yeah.
It was not financed in any way by Russia. And so it's interesting because I'm not sure what portrait this paints of Russia, because it's very abandoned. And later on, not to be spoilery, and it isn't a spoiler, they do go to one other town, and it made me think of Western. It's very quiet, very abandoned, and maybe it's just a factor of being from a big city myself. Whenever I go to small towns, they feel abandoned.
Well, yeah, and to me, I almost wonder, Siberia is obviously really cold and snowy, but I'm like wondering, well, is it like the Midwest in the U.S. where it's long stretches of farmland, essentially? Yeah. Like, is that, is it, because that's what it felt like. It felt like I was watching like a road trip movie, some comedy where they go from the West Coast to the East Coast almost. Mm-hmm. And obviously a lot more serious.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't quite road trip.
And it takes an unflinching look at its characters. It never treats them with kitty gloves in a way, and it's about kids. Loveless didn't do that either, and really Loveless is about the parents.
Yes.
And it does not treat them with any sort of it both doesn't make them the worst people ever, but it also doesn't make them the best people ever. It tries to leave.
Well, that's what happens in this one too, though. Even if the focus is different. So we go back to their home, and Dad has shown up, and Dad has been gone for like 12 years.
Yeah,
and it is.
We don't learn that fact until later, but we know he's been gone for a while.
It's such a great setup, and the reveal of it and the way it's dealt with is so slow, and no one talks about it, and that feels very masculine as well. Their mom is there, and she's not saying much, and then there's this older woman.
Who I guess is their grandmother?
I guess that's, their mom's mom?
Yeah.
She never says anything, but there are these shots on her. It's very mysterious. I feel like it means something.
Well, there's always something lost in translation between, whenever you watch a foreign film, so we're never going to get the full meaning in that way. But I also the way it does exposition is so well done, and the mom says, "Oh, your father's here," and they're like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
They go to the room and they look in on him quietly, and he's sleeping on a bed. They close the door, they run upstairs, and they look at a photo of him hidden in a book.
Yeah.
That says so much. It's hidden in a book.
Yeah.
They need to look at him and then at the photo to even realize it is their father.
Right.
And so that's... in another movie, they would have looked at each other and been like, is that really him? Let's go check the photo.
Yeah, they didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then when Dad gets up, he doesn't say much. At what point are we saying we're in spoiler territory?
Let's say we're in spoiler territory.
We're going to start, because that's the setup. And as we said, it's great. And if you don't want to know anything else about it,
go watch it. I think it's rentable on Amazon. We'll try and put something in the description about where you can find it.
Yes. You never know where he was this whole time.
Yeah.
And he just kind of quietly takes charge.
Yeah.
So from then on, and I don't know that we want to do a blow-by-blow of the whole movie.
No. Let's the beginning of the movie is really well crafted. So is the rest of it. But moving into the movie,
Dad takes them on a road trip. They keep getting told one thing's going to happen, and then something different happens. He keeps kind of switching things up on them. And what I really love about this is the way that your expectations are subverted. It seems like Yvonne is the weak one, Andrey is the strong one, and then you don't know what's up with Dad.
no.
As it is, Yvonne is the one fighting with the father the whole time. Andrey is the one brown-nosing, basically.
Yeah.
And the father, you keep going back and forth between what is he trying to do? Is he trying to raise them? Is he trying to teach them something? Or is he a bad guy and he's just dragging them along? He does very cruel things to them, but then it seems like he wants to teach them something.
Он ваш.
Как это?
Так, по морде получили?
The way, so Andrey is the older brother, he's bigger, and he's more physically strong, and he's the one who's willing to follow orders, and also, because he's more physically capable of doing the things his dad wants, is the stronger brother.
Right.
Yvonne, I feel like, is the one through the whole movie who actually knows, like, this guy is, is abusive, he's doing these bad things to us. And he isn't like, oh, I'm learning a lesson. And so he has the more, like, emotional, mental...
Do you think he's the correct one? Do you think the story is that simple?
I don't think it's that simple, but he's more realistic than Andrey. Andrey never looks at his father and is like, has the real... Because Yvonne is left out in the rain, and maybe he's teaching him a lesson, but that's also abusive. And
I feel like the father's trying to make up for 12 years of being absent by teaching them.
I think Yvonne is the only one who realizes that, like, you are not doing this in the right way. Mm-hmm. Like, Yvonne is like, who are you? You're trying to be our father, and you haven't been here for 12 years. And where Andrey is like, no, he's our father.
But
and
Yvonne
so I feel like,
is making a big deal over a ton of small things. Yes, being left out in the rain, but that's after he's basically dicked around with whether or not he'll want... I wanted to slap Yvonne a few times, and at the same time I totally understood where he was coming from, and that's good storytelling.
Oh yeah, well I just think it's like, Yvonne is totally a brat, and is totally like, I want food, I don't want food, that whole diner scene.
He's testing his father, because his father, at the end of the day, he's actually harder on Andrey, who's the one that's doing what he's asked, and easier on Yvonne.
This is true. I guess the way I look at it, Yvonne isn't willing to just accept that he's come back into their lives, whereas Andrey is just willfully ignorant of Andrey doesn't seem very in touch with his emotions or like the mental thing, he's not thinking about it. Yvonne is like a more sensitive kid and he's in touch with that. It's not really about being right or wrong.
You seem to go for Yvonne more than I did. I spent a lot of time just wanting to strangle him.
Oh, he's totally difficult, but he's also a kid.
Yeah.
And the father,
then that's the good part of it though, not that his feelings are unjustified, But it's like he was making the situation as hard as he could have.
Oh, yes. And
so was the father. He explained nothing. It's like he wanted his kids to learn something without telling them.
Yes. And skipping ahead to the ending of the film.
Right.
We end up on a tower, and Ivan's at the top, and he's not really over his fear of heights, but he's testing his father. And I almost feel like it's the hubris of the father that gets the father killed. Of course, the father just grabs a plank of wood and falls and dies.
Ваня, сынок.
Yes.
But it's really about, to me, it's this vague question of, like, is the fact that he's just tried to reinsert himself into their lives, is that what gets him killed?
Yeah.
He wants to be the father, and the mother goes up and protects Ivan, and Ivan has a connection with her. The father has no connection with Ivan, goes up to the top, and dies.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of a question of, like, I don't think it's...
I feel like he was doing that out of concern. Like, he wasn't going to grab...
He was doing it out of concern. He's not doing it from a place of evilness. Nothing he does is from a place of evil. Mm-hmm. It's maybe from a place of misguidance.
But then did you notice the switch right after that? Because as soon as Dad dies, Andrei's in charge again.
Yes.
Ivan has no idea what to do.
Oh, yeah.
And they never find whatever's in that damn box in the boat.
I know, which is like, I want to know what's in there.
But I think the message is supposed to be that because there are a few hints that maybe Dad is up to something illegal or who knows what.
Who knows what.
But I think the ultimate idea is, no, he was doing this for the sons. He was maybe completely misguided. He was maybe... it's hard to know what he thought he was doing because he never explains himself. He never says anything.
Well, and in the end, he hits his kid, Andrei, right before. That's why Ivan runs off and, like, waves the knife at him. And I sort of left the film feeling like, the father's abusive and isn't good. Maybe there's still a way for the father to redeem himself. Like, I'm not judging it that far. But, like, I think the film is saying, like, the film isn't exactly condemning it, but it is leaving the space for me to somewhat condemn the father and say,
I wouldn't say
that's not good.
I wouldn't say it's a movie about abusive fathers. I'd say it's a movie about...
It's a movie about two brothers, to me. I just think the father takes up so much of their space. It's how they interact with each other and him.
I felt like it was a movie about a conflict between masculinity.
I would say that's fair. To me, it's the masculinity of the brothers, because a lot of the film, I think, is how the brothers need each other. And that's where I think a lot of it is in the middle section. It's only at the bookended by the mom and the dad. Mm-hmm. And then there's the masculinity of the father and how he's trying to teach them to deal with things or to deal with a situation. And meanwhile, I think what the film, not that it's saying, but what I took from it is that they really need each other, not the father.
Yeah.
It's really about how they need each other and not him. And maybe it's sort of saying they need a familial masculinity, not an overbearing masculinity, but that's just...
I didn't get that from it. It was more about love between men and in a non-sexual manner. I'm meaning father, son, brother to brother.
Yeah.
And how it can go wrong.
Yeah.
Пей. Запей.
And I would agree that the father's abusive. Absolutely. I also think he really loved them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, that is an issue with abusers, is, there is genuine feeling there, but it's not okay. And they had those pictures at the end where you see that, like, he was this happy father.
Yeah.
And that, because almost the whole movie you're questioning why the father is doing this. And I think that is what the box that we never get to see inside is about. But they don't get to see it either. The brothers never know.
No, and I agree. The father loves them. It's that complicated thing where they probably need each other. They need each other more than they need the father. Not that the father doesn't love them, or that they don't even love the father. I think the whole point is that they love the father, and that's what makes it so hard.
Yeah.
But that in that situation, in that moment in time, they weren't ready for maybe the father to come back, or maybe the situation was so complicated with him coming back because he was so estranged, and suddenly he's trying to be this presence in their life that it's like you have to be careful with love almost, or with this masculinity, or with how you approach this situation. And at least that's kind of what I
guess I don't know, I didn't get a clear, and I don't like getting clear messages from movies.
I wouldn't say this is like my...
No, but I saw more the way power moved between people.
Yeah, you're right, there's that too.
And in the end,
That's a
it
part
was
of it.
the older brother, Andrey, who took charge, and that was really interesting.
Чего смотришь?
I don't know what it means,
It doesn't have to mean anything.
but I really liked it.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. It's a low-budget film, but it's the best kind. They have basically 3 actors for most of the movie, 1 location for half the movie.
Yeah.
And it just plays off of their interactions.
Oh yeah, well, speaking of interactions, my last comment maybe is that... so we watched Zama, which I'm going to very briefly compare this to. Zama had a lot of shots on people who were looking at something and you didn't see that thing. Mm-hmm. In Zama, I wasn't too interested in the characters, so I didn't find those shots interesting. I wasn't sure what it was exploring. In this movie, there are a lot of shots where you're looking at the kids, looking at something, maybe the father or something else, and I wanted to be looking at them and not at that thing because I want to see how they react. We are getting so much from how they are reacting, and you're like, oh, are they happy? Are they sad? Are they upset? Do they like it? Are they confused? You know, and I want to see this really long take on like the range of emotions they're going through. I thought it was a really good choice to do that.
Yes. And I'm going to say one of my favorite things in movies is who's the bad guy?
Yeah.
And you can ultimately say it's the father.
But it's not that simple.
And this does it really well. And it does really well at hinting at, again, the bigger picture that could be happening. And it's not. It's really just the implication that the father's like doing a dirty deal, and later it turns out he's getting the motor for the boat.
Right.
And because that's really mostly how true life goes.
Yes, I agree. It's
mostly you thinking, oh, maybe this big, huge thing is happening. It's not. It's not. It's just,
Yeah.
It's just mysterious, too, because no one's explaining what's going on.
Yeah.
I wanted to end this conversation on kind of 2 things. One, the very sad note that the actor who played the older brother,
Andrey,
drowned a year later.
I know, that's super sad.
And knowing that going into the movie was a little rough.
There's lots of water and them swimming.
Yeah, and apparently
stuff.
he was afraid of water prior to this movie. At least that's what the article I read said. And then he got a little bolder about it, and he's a young boy, and he went out in cold water and drowned. And it's really sad.
That's really sad.
But since we've seen Loveless, I just thought it was an interesting comparison, because this is clearly a first film that's very low budget, and it's interesting to see the scope went way out with Loveless.
Yeah.
So by the time he does Loveless, he has more money, and it's in like Moscow, and it's in lots of different locations, and you have a lot more characters, and you have a bigger story.
Yeah, it's still not like a huge story, though. He likes focusing on people, but you're right, he does expand it to a degree, yeah?
Yeah, and I guess that's an aspect of just becoming a better director with more money
and more ability.
But it was an interesting comparison because they do both deal with parents and children.
I've got to wonder what happened in Andrey Zvyagintsev life that made him want to make these movies.
I think some of the other ones are not about parents and children, but we'll find out. The next one is The Banishment.
I didn't know that. I'm super excited to watch it.
So I guess we're going to watch that this week, and probably, I don't know what we don't necessarily have a regular schedule for this, but it'll be the next one we talk about.
It will. What did you guys think of this movie if you've seen it? Did you see Loveless? Are you curious about this guy's films? We certainly were. Talk to us about it in the comments below, on Twitter, on Facebook, all those things.
Yeah, please.
Also, like this video and subscribe if you want to see more. Like this series.
Das Vidanya, or... I don't know any Russian.